The ocean spirit sliced through the deep waters of the Pacific, its hull groaning with every wave. The setting sun painted the horizon in hues of gold and orange, casting shimmering reflections across the water. But on board, the atmosphere was anything but warm. Tension hung in the air like an approaching storm. Captain Thomas Reynolds gripped the helm, his gaze fixed on the endless blue ahead. His sun-weathered skin and graying hair told stories of a lifetime at sea. He had faced storms, betrayals, and failures. But nothing compared to the weight of this moment. If this fishing trip failed, it would be the end. Behind him, Miguel Torres adjusted the radar, trying to push down the growing unease in his chest. First mate and Reynolds' loyal friend, he knew the ocean like few did. His heart was torn between the drive for success and the fear of the unknown. A daughter waited for him back home, and promises he couldn't afford to break. Below deck, Ethan Red Sullivan battled the ship's aging engine. The stench of oil and rust clung to his clothes, and sweat gleamed on his face in the suffocating heat. The ocean spirit was old, and every day at sea felt like a fight against time. Yusuf Al-Said, the ship's cook, watched the darkening sky through a small porthole. He didn't like this silence. To a superstitious man like him, the sea spoke, and tonight, it was silent. Liam Donovan, the youngest of the crew, scribbled something in his journal. The idealistic boy had always dreamed of uncovering the ocean's mysteries, but now he realized the sea was far more than the romanticized stories in books. It was relentless. The nets kept coming back empty. Days and days at sea, and not a single fish. Desperation was creeping through the crew. No catch meant no money. No money meant the ocean spirit would be sold for scrap. Reynolds would not let his ship die like this. We change course. The decision was made without hesitation. Miguel turned to the captain, surprised. This was an uncharted area. Treacherous depths, unpredictable currents. Fishermen spoke of these waters in whispers, stories of unexplained disappearances and a sea that hid secrets. Yusuf pressed his lips together and looked up at the sky, murmuring a silent prayer. Hours passed, and the night draped over them like a shroud. The engine sputtered, coughing up black smoke. The fuel supply was running low. The radio crackled with strange interference. Yusuf, uneasy, spoke of old sailors' legends. Places where the ocean did not forgive men who dared to challenge it. Places where the gods of the sea still reigned. The wind picked up. The waves grew stronger. But it wasn't just the sea that seemed restless. Then, the first sign appeared. A faint glow beneath the water. Miguel was the first to notice. At first, he thought it was just an illusion caused by exhaustion. But within seconds, the light grew stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat. Reynolds tightened his grip on the wheel. Ethan stepped out of the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. Yusuf clutched his amulet tighter. Liam slowly stood, a chill crawling up his spine. The glow intensified. It moved. Something was down there. And the ocean spirit was heading straight for it. The glow beneath the water continued to pulse, mysterious and hypnotic. It was as if the ocean itself was breathing, sending out a silent call to anyone brave enough to listen. Most sailors would have turned away. Human instinct warned against the unknown, against challenging the sea when it started revealing its secrets. But Captain Reynolds was no ordinary man. With a steady, determined gaze, he made his decision. The ocean spirit would move forward. Below deck, the engine hummed as Ethan pushed it to its limits. Fuel was running dangerously low, and every extra minute in these waters was a risky gamble. Miguel kept his eyes locked on the radar. The anomaly was directly below them, moving slowly, as if it were waiting. On the deck, Liam Donovan couldn't hide his fascination. The glow reflected off his young face, and his hands trembled as he gripped his logbook. He recorded every detail, every sensation, knowing he was witnessing something extraordinary. The air was thick, heavy. Even Yusuf, always skeptical and pragmatic, seemed to sense the invisible presence of something greater. This night would not be forgotten. As the ocean spirit hovered over the glow, the waters stirred. Then, the darkness below them broke into a spectacle of light and movement. Hundreds, no, thousands, of silver tuna swirled beneath the vessel, their scales reflecting the glow like a submerged field of stars. The school was massive, moving in perfect, synchronized harmony. It was impossible. Tuna didn't behave this way. Not this organized, not this aligned, as if they were a single organism. For the crew, it meant only one thing: fortune. Hunger, exhaustion, and desperation gave way to pure adrenaline. The nets were cast. The ocean spirit had finally found abundance. But something was wrong. A strange sensation spread across the deck. It wasn't just the excitement of the catch. It wasn't just the fear of losing the opportunity. It was the overwhelming feeling that they were being watched. That something, besides the school of fish, was there. The first thunderclap split the sky like a warning. The wind shifted. The waves began to rise. The ocean did not want to be challenged. As the nets filled with fish, the sea revolted. The air became charged with electricity, and the first lightning strike lit up the darkness like a divine flash. The ocean spirit rocked violently. Miguel gripped the wheel, struggling to maintain control. Yusuf muttered something under his breath, staring at the sky as if expecting an unseen force to strike them down. Liam, caught in the chaos, lost his footing. The ship tilted abruptly. Then, the wave came. A monstrous, merciless wall of water rose like an enraged titan and crashed down onto the ocean spirit. The deck became a chaos of water, screams, and darkness. And Liam vanished into the sea. The freezing impact cut through his skin like knives. The ocean swallowed him whole. The weight of his life vest dragged him down, the current spinning him in every direction, leaving him disoriented. Everything was a blur of darkness and foam, the muffled sounds of thunder and the ship growing more distant. He tried to swim, but the pull was too strong. Panic set in. Then, something happened. In the midst of his struggle, a shadow cut through the water beside him. Something moved fast, then again. Glowing eyes emerged in the bluish twilight of the ocean. Dolphins. 3, 4, half a dozen of them. They moved like arrows, circling Liam, guiding him upward toward the surface. Each time he sank, one of them appeared, gently pushing him, keeping him afloat. They weren't just there. They were helping him. On the ocean spirit's deck, Ethan spotted them first. His heart pounded. Dolphins didn't act randomly. They knew. It was as if they understood exactly what they were doing. The crew rushed to throw a lifebuoy. Liam, weak and dazed, was pulled back onto the ship, gasping, shivering, but alive. And surrounding the ocean spirit, the dolphins still swam, like silent guardians of the sea. The young sailor locked eyes with one of them. And for a brief moment, he was certain the dolphin looked back. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. These animals were there for a reason. The sea was trying to say something. And the ocean spirit had yet to understand. The storm had passed, but the air was still heavy. The ocean spirit rocked gently over the now calm waters, yet the crew remained silent, still trying to process what had happened the night before. The dolphins. They hadn't just saved Liam. They knew he needed to be saved. There was intelligence in their eyes, something deeper than mere instinct. And then, as the morning sun cast its golden light across the ocean, the true mystery emerged. Miguel saw it first. About 20 meters from the ship, something was struggling at the surface. A dolphin. It was trapped in a ghost net, a tangled mess of synthetic fibers left behind by illegal fishermen. The webbing tightened around its body, restricting its movement, preventing it from swimming freely. But what truly caught the crew's attention were its eyes. Expressive, intelligent, and, somehow, familiar. It was one of the dolphins from the night before. The same one that swam beside Liam. The same one that had watched them, as if it understood. The dolphin's breathing was labored. Its movements were weak. It wouldn't survive much longer. But the crew knew that any decision here came at a cost. The storm could return. The ocean was unpredictable. Save the dolphin, or save themselves. Captain Reynolds stood in silence, watching. Miguel, ever the pragmatist, crossed his arms. He wasn't a cruel man, but he knew just how fragile the ocean spirit's situation was. Every lost minute increased the risk for the crew. And yet, there was something in the dolphin's eyes. Something that made the decision weigh heavier than it should have. Ethan and Yusuf exchanged glances. They knew Reynolds would make the right call. And deep down, they already knew what it would be. Without hesitation, Ethan and Yusuf lowered the lifeboat. The waves slapped against the fiberglass hull as they rowed toward the dolphin. The animal was barely moving, exhausted. The net's fibers had cut into its skin, leaving raw red marks along its silver body. Ethan grabbed hold of the tangled webbing. Yusuf pulled out a knife and started cutting. Each severed strand was a victory against human negligence. And then, finally, the last fiber snapped. For a moment, the dolphin simply drifted, motionless. Then, with a sudden movement, it swam away. The crew expected it to disappear into the depths. But it didn't leave. It lingered. Watching. As if waiting for something more. Before they could fully grasp what was happening, the ocean began to stir again. Dolphins. Dozens of them. Emerging from the mist on the horizon, surrounding the ocean spirit with smooth, synchronized movements. There was no fear in them. No restlessness. It was as if they knew exactly what they were doing. As if they were guiding the ship. And then. The mist parted. And before them, an unbelievable sight. The waters were alive with massive schools of fish. The largest catch they had ever seen. The ocean had just repaid the crew's compassion with the promise of abundance. And in the distance, the freed dolphin made one final leap before vanishing into the deep blue. But the feeling it left behind was unmistakable. That encounter was no coincidence. The ocean spirit had just witnessed something beyond human understanding. And the true mystery of the ocean was only beginning. What mystery does the ocean have in store for these men? Keep listening to find out. But first, like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to hear more stories like this. The ocean was silent. The ocean spirit floated on silver waters, surrounded by schools of fish so vast they looked like a sea within the sea. The engine hummed softly, and the fishermen moved swiftly across the deck, hauling in nets overflowing with fish, more than they had ever seen. Their luck had finally changed. But deep down, they all knew. Something wasn't right. Miguel worked mechanically, pulling in the nets and organizing the catch, but his mind was elsewhere. It all seemed too easy. For weeks, they had found nothing but open sea and relentless storms. And now, suddenly, the fish were here, as if the ocean had decided to gift them its riches. But, what if it wasn't a gift? What if it was a test? He glanced at the dolphins still swimming around the ship. They hadn't left. They were watching. And then, a thought struck him like a crashing wave. What if we made a pact without knowing? Amid the excitement of the catch, Liam remained silent, gripping his journal with trembling fingers. Since the night of the storm, something inside him refused to rest. The dolphins. The way they moved. The way they guided the ship. The way they seemed to communicate without words. There was something about them that went beyond anything they could understand. Flipping to a blank page in his journal, he began sketching frantically. Curved lines. Twisting marks. Symbols that seemed to flow from his hand without thought. When he finished, he stared at the paper. And then, his blood ran cold. Because the symbols he had drawn were the same ones etched onto the dolphin's skin. The sound came like distant thunder. On the horizon, dark clouds began to rise, towering like black walls in the sky. The wind picked up. The waters churned. It was as if the ocean itself was taking a deep breath before striking. Miguel turned to Captain Reynolds. Both men knew what was coming. But this time, something was different. This time, there were no glowing lights beneath the water. No guides in the darkness. Only the sound of thunder and the howl of the wind, like a terrible warning. The punishment was coming. Amid the growing chaos, Yusuf dropped everything and ran to the ship's railing. His eyes were wide, locked onto the horizon. He murmured something in Arabic, his voice barely audible over the roaring wind. Miguel turned to him, trying to understand his words. But then, Yusuf screamed. Loud. Fierce. So intense that everyone stopped what they were doing. His eyes were filled with terror. He pointed toward the surging waves and, this time in English, his voice trembling, he shouted. The guardians of the ocean. And in that instant, the crew finally understood. The dolphins had never been there to guide them. They had never been there to save them. They had only been watching. They had only been testing. And now, the true judgment was about to begin. The sea roared like an enraged beast. Colossal waves crashed against the ocean spirit, threatening to swallow the ship whole. The wind howled, tearing at the sails and whipping the deck with unrelenting fury. The crew clung to anything they could, every muscle tense, every breath short. The fear was palpable. But in the midst of the chaos, Captain Reynolds noticed something. The storm was not natural. It was not just another whim of the ocean. It was a warning. And then, he knew what had to be done. With unwavering resolve, Reynolds grabbed the ship's radio and shouted his orders over the roaring storm. The decision was insane. But there was no other choice. Every man aboard knew it. The fishermen dropped the ropes, untying the knots that held the nets to the deck. The tons of fish they had caught, their only chance to save the season, to feed their families, to keep the ocean spirit from becoming just another sunken ship lost to time, were cast back into the sea. Fish after fish slid off the sides of the boat, plunging into the turbulent waters below. And then, as if the world itself had gone silent, the storm stopped. The wind died. The thunder fell silent. The waves softened, settling into gentle ripples across the water's surface. A deep silence swallowed the ocean. The crew could hardly believe it. The sea had accepted their offering. For long seconds, no one moved. No one dared to break the sacred stillness. And then, on the horizon, something stirred. At first, it was only shadows beneath the waves. Then, the first leaps. Dolphins. Dozens of them. They surfaced in perfect synchrony, their silver bodies glistening under the sun. But they weren't just playing. They were showing the way. In flawless formation, they swam ahead of the ocean spirit, guiding the ship toward safety. Liam, trembling with emotion, pulled out his journal and, with shaky hands, wrote. The true wealth of the sea is not in what we take, but in what we give back. Ethan watched the dolphins for a long time. The glow in their eyes. It wasn't just intelligence. It was something deeper. It was understanding. Hours later, the ocean spirit spotted land. The port looked different now, as if they had left one world and returned to another. The story of the guardian dolphins spread quickly. Seasoned sailors listened with skeptical eyes, but deep down, they feared it was true. The legends of the ocean existed for a reason. Captain Reynolds stepped off the ship and stood before the sea. For years, he had believed he owned it. That the ocean existed to be conquered, exploited, taken from. But now, he knew the truth. Men do not own the ocean. Men belong to it. And they must respect it. Far on the horizon, where the blue of the sky met the blue of the sea, something moved. A single dolphin. It leaped high into the air, cutting through the sky like a silver arrow. For a moment, it seemed to look directly at the ocean spirit. And then, it vanished into the depths. As if saying goodbye. Or perhaps, until next time. The ocean holds secrets that men will never fully understand. For centuries, sailors have crossed its waters, believing they could tame it, exploit it, take from it whatever they pleased. But the sea has never belonged to anyone. It gives, and it takes. It tests, and it judges. And only those who learn to respect it will find the true answer. The ocean spirit set out in search of an abundant catch, but it returned with something far greater, understanding. The crew that faced storms and witnessed the impossible would never be the same again. They learned that the sea does not reward greed, but generosity. That the true treasure is not in the capture, but in the connection to something far greater. And that sometimes, the creatures we consider lesser may, in fact, be the true guardians of this world. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, where sunlight dances between the currents, the dolphins swim free. And maybe, just maybe, they are still watching. Waiting to see if mankind has truly learned its lesson. Did you enjoy following this incredible journey? I hope so. It's very important that you like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to hear more stories like this.